Story 1. Am I the a-hole for getting angry with my girlfriend and demanding she pay to replace my sheets after she got blood on them? I, male 26, have been dating my girlfriend, female 24, for about a year now, and we recently moved in together. She didn't have a lot of furniture and such, so it's mostly mine in our apartment, including my bed, frame, mattress, sheets. I am a bit of a neat freak, and she generally is too, so we get along pretty well living together. Now, I'm not one of those guys that gets grossed out over a woman having her menstrual cycle. I've had spicy time with my girlfriend on lighter days with a towel down. I'll go buy her feminine products. I don't get weirded out if she mentions it. I will say, though, it totally grosses me out getting on my bed, though. Well, a few days ago when we woke up, I noticed a blood spot on the bed and got totally grossed out. I knew she had been on her period for 3 days already, so it wasn't any sort of surprise accident. I asked how it happened, and she was upset and said she thought she didn't need to sleep with anything on. I told her that was absurd. Why would you go without wearing anything and get blood all over my bed? I told her that was irresponsible and that she needed to pay me for new sheets. She agreed to pay for new sheets, but got upset with me for getting angry and calling her irresponsible. She said that she likes to not wear anything when she can. She said she thought her flow was light and she wouldn't bleed overnight. She says I have no reason to be angry and talk down to her over something I don't experience. I said that she should have been more careful with where we sleep and that it was unhygienic. Am I the a-hole for getting upset and wanting her to pay? She did ruin the sheets, the fact that she should at least pitch in for new sheets if you're in a relationship. That part I can understand. I mean, it would be like, if some other bodily fluid of yours got on there. I'm not going to get into details. And they were ruined and you needed to pitch in for new ones. That part I can understand. Maybe a little over the top about this. Maybe letting your personal feelings about, menstrual blood on the sheets kind of grossing you out. Maybe not getting so angry about it. Just realize, hey, it happens. It kind of happens sometimes. I like to be neat, and you seem to like it too. Maybe just be a little calmer about it. I'd say, I don't know, quarter of an a-hole. Quarter of an a-hole, maybe tipping up to half of an a-hole to be this upset about this little thing, considering the fact that she's willing to pitch in money to replace them. Story 2. Try to steal our $400 security deposit by being a jerk? Fine. Now you can pay us $1,300. So this story takes place like 5 years ago when my husband and I were broke college students with a young baby. We worked hard to afford our awful little duplex, $600 a month, and necessities, while trying to finish our degrees to one day get ahead. Our duplex was one in an entire neighborhood owned by a large company and managed by a super sketchy married couple who lived on the same street. Before our kid was born, we did the normal excited new parent thing of painting his nursery and decorating, blah, blah. Our lease stated we needed permission to paint, which we obtained from the property manager, the husband of the couple. He insists it would be fine. He insisted. And being young and naive, we didn't get it in writing because he was so chill about it. So we paint and move on with our lives. A little while later, our lease was up, and we had given notice to vacate as we were moving closer to my husband's school. The property manager was understanding, everything was fine, and we scheduled our move-out inspection. Prior to this inspection, we specifically asked him for the name of the paint color we needed to use when repainting the nursery. He flat out refused to give it, saying it was unnecessary to paint because we'd been there so long they'd be painting the whole duplex anyway. Okay, cool. Move-out inspection day comes and goes. We left the house in better shape than we found it, aside from a small area of torn carpet right along a seam in a doorway. The property manager inspected and said everything looked great, and we should get our whole deposit, $400 back, minus a few bucks for the torn carpet. Sounds good, boss. Enter a period of weeks where we waited and waited for our deposit, eventually leaving messages upon messages with false promises or no return calls at all. Eventually, over a month later, this culminated in a phone call with the property manager where he said, and I remember this almost verbatim, I don't know what you were so worried about anyway. It's only like $200 you're getting back. He cited the painted nursery and the huge mess left behind as deductions, and I coldly informed him we'd be going to court because we didn't feel we owed for those reasons. The place was spotless when we left, aside from the 6-pack of beer we left him in the fridge for being chill. Not 1 hour later, he called back, and miraculously, our refund check had just shown up in the mail. Already knowing he was trying to deal with us, I can't say that word, we installed a recording app on my phone, one-party consent state, and went to the office. The check indeed was only for $200 for our deposit, and included no list of what they charged for us for, important detail. We intentionally goaded him into admitting that he had told us not to paint and that the house looked great on move-out. And we went on our happy way, revenge plan already unfolding. We didn't cash the check, and instead emailed the CEO of the entire property company, copying in the property manager and detailing the entire process. The CEO sent back a smart guy email with a cute little typed up list of deductions, including all the things we were specifically told we wouldn't be on the hook for. A fun detail was that even by his own math, they owed us $230 of our deposit. No one really had an answer for why they then tried to issue a check for $200, but whatever. Choke was on him, because we began digging through all the state regulations on security deposits and refunds, hoping to prove that our length of stay meant he couldn't charge us for wear and tear things like carpet cleaning, etc. And in our search, we instead happened upon a statute requiring landlords to return security deposit refunds and an itemized list of deductions within 30 days, or lose the right to withhold for actual damages and be subject to treble damages, or be subject to damages if the landlord is thought to be maliciously withholding the refund. So we typed up a demand letter for our entire security deposit, citing the statute, which he had broken because we didn't receive any refund offer or itemized list until 6 weeks later. And when he sent us a smart guy reply, we filed in small claims court for our entire deposit. Plus, again, this is where treble damages and court costs. I don't know what treble means in that. Now, I don't know if it's clear at this point, but I can be really fracking petty if I feel like someone is trying to frack with me. And it was clear this guy made a career out of stealing money from low-income renters who likely could never afford to fight it. I was ticked. I spent the next month before our court date compiling all email correspondence in which he'd fracked himself over numerous times by providing written documentation that he exceeded time limits, charged incorrect amounts, etc. I also compiled phone records showing dozens and dozens of unanswered and unreturned calls to the property manager and detailed accounts I'd made immediately after hanging up on lies from the property manager. I printed out a screenshot from the company's own website detailing the CEO's role as the legal advisor, so I could innocently claim, shouldn't he have known the statutes for these issues? I printed all the relevant statutes and highlighted the important parts. And then I made 3 fracking copies of everything and nicely compiled each in a binder complete with sleeve protectors and page numbers, One for our own reference, one for the butthole property manager and/or CEO, we weren't sure who would show up, and one for the judge himself. We also took our handy little recording of the property manager admitting to all the smeg he lied about and then pretended to have never said. Needless to say, the judge laughed at how prepared we were, asked if we were law students, and then awarded us treble damages and court fees as well as interest. I will never forget the CEO's face when we looked over and smiled at him. All his a-hole emails and disregard for the law were on the table, and rather than give us the original $350 or so we were promised from our deposit, he ended up paying us over $1,300 a month later. It was glorious. Well, I hope you're more up to date with where you're living now, and make sure you know all of the statutes, and I'm sure you're going to have a better time with your landlord this time. It's amazing how these people that are providing services for people are just taking such blatant advantage. It's awful.
Please like and subscribe if you've made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day.
Story 3, Boston. My therapist has created a false intimate violation and forced abortion and is reporting it on my behalf. I was not violated. I am in Boston, but my abortion happened in New York City. I was 18, and this was completely legal. I'm 18 and in college. Like all 18-year-olds, I mess up. I messed up big time, and I ended up pregnant. I waited a week after my pregnancy test came up positive. I went to the doctor to 100% confirm the pregnancy, and my best friend, her boyfriend, my boyfriend, and I took a couple's trip to New York City so I could have the abortion in a safe environment and have everything taken care of in a timely manner. We got back to Boston and life went on. I'm in therapy to work through my problems regarding the self-unaliving attempts of my older sister and dealing with the repercussions of her mental illness. I have not been diagnosed with any mental illness. I am not considered depressed. I have no history of any kind of any mental illness, self-harm, or anything of the sort. I received my therapy in a non-religious environment. This is just straight-up confidential counseling because my sister attempted self-unaliving right before I went to college. My parents are toxic, and I needed help with that burden. I told my therapist immediately that I'd had an abortion. Told her my reasons: cost of a baby, not wanting children, I go to a university that I worked my butt off to get into, and I'll be damned if I let an unwanted pregnancy ruin my life. I also could not raise a child that I disdained. Selfish? Yes, but I'm not sorry. I also informed her that my boyfriend and I are still together and that he and I plan on staying together. The intimacy was between two adults who 100% consented. It was just a mix-up and confusion on both our parts. He and I split the cost of the abortion, with him paying 75% of the cost. I go home and do homework. At around 4 p.m., I get a visit from the Boston police who are investigating an intimate violation. They think that I'm the victim and my boyfriend is the perpetrator and that I've been forced to have an abortion. I asked them where they got this false information and give them proof that both he and I agreed that abortion was the way to go. After a lot of talking to smooth things over and apologizing, they left. Then I get a call from my parents. They're ranting on and on about how I've gotten an abortion and sinned in God's eyes. How I've been fornicating and messing every man, fornicating and fracking every man in New York City. And how my lack of contact, I'm no contact with them because of abuse and they're narcissists, is just devastating my mother. They screamed down the phone for 4 hours before telling me that they've been given my address in Boston by my therapist and are coming to get me no matter what. It becomes clear. My therapist called the police, reported a false violation and forced abortion, violated all sorts of confidentiality, and had to track my parents down. I never gave her their number, address, or personal information. She didn't even know their names. I only ever called them mom and dad. To call them to say that I'd been violated and gotten an abortion. I never gave her any sort of go-ahead to do anything. I never used that word, the violation word, in our sessions. In fact, when I mentioned the intimacy, I called it consensual intimacy. The police are still hounding me. I'm freaking out and constantly having panic attacks. My therapist is making things worse by continuing to knowingly provide false information to the police, although I gave them the information that should have ended this all. Therapist is also saying that I have Stockholm Syndrome, and that's why I won't report my boyfriend, and I'm at a loss for what to do. I also know why she's having some weird witch hunt. My boyfriend is in a fraternity, and in her mind, I was brutally violated at a fraternity party. This is what she told the police. I was not, and in the session I specifically told her that I never had intimacy with him at his fraternity house several times when she tried to convince me that I was violated at his fraternity house. I've also started to get calls from the NYPD investigating the forced abortion, and I'm freaking out and don't know what to do. This is serious. At this point in time, I know that I need to get the police off my butt. Is there a way that would help me? Is a lawyer the best way to go? Also, is there a way for me to report my therapist and make sure that she's punished? Is there a way to make sure she doesn't do this again? Oh, someone else, not me. I can't provide any kind of legal advice or anything like that. It does sound like a lawyer is best to get involved on this, and I really hope that you don't have to leave school, and I hope that you can at least move to a place where your parents don't find out about this. It sounds like your parents are trying to upend you, and you've gone no contact with them. And it's just all this therapist being very controlling and just reading into everything, just taking personal stuff. That sounds like there are organizations you can report to and try and get this therapist some sort of investigation and some of the help she needs, because she is taking some of this stuff way too personally. Story 4. Trying to buy a house from the most entitled couple I've ever met. Years ago, we decided to move closer to my parents. The housing choices were slim, but we found a dilapidated house close by. It looked like it needed lots of work and seemed overpriced for the area, say $200K. We organized a viewing to decide on it and brought my very practical dad with us for a second opinion. The viewing was conducted by the owners, and from the very beginning, they were off. They'd never sold a house before. We were the first people to view it, and they actually said to us during the viewing they were doing us a favor by offering us their Hoarder's Paradise house at such a great price. We told them we wanted to move closer to my parents, and I think they assumed we were desperate. We got home, had a think, and the next day offered the agent a price below the asking price, which we believed to be suitable for its condition. Hours later, the agent calls back and says that the owners are going to prey on it for a week, then gives us an answer. For your information, the time span of this is unheard of in my country. An answer is usually given in a day. A week later, they declined our offer. We offer the agent another $2K. The agent calls back and apologetically tells us the sellers refuse to give us an answer yet because A, they haven't even started looking for a house yet, and B, the owners believe they can sell it for more than the asking price, so they will get back to us when they were ready and we'd have to wait. We rescinded our offer. A month later, we found a house in the same area with a lot less work needed and at only $180K. Our offer, through the same agent, was accepted, and we moved in 4 months later. During this time, the agent calls us and says the entitled sellers have found a house now and would like to offer us their house at the original asking price. We declined. I was interested in the progress of the old house. The sale sign had not moved, so I chatted to the agent. He told me they were the only offer. He told us that we were the only offer in 6 months. And these people had been an absolute nightmare from the start. They expected the agent to pay for cleaners ready for the viewing and wouldn't take any advice to help with the sale. Remember, hoarder's house. He also said that they'd recently put a deposit on a house against his advice before selling theirs, so now the old house is going up for auction because they needed the cash. I instantly called my dad. He was looking for a property for my sister and had already seen the house. He was interested. So, off we popped to the auction house on the day and bid for it. The owners were in the room but hadn't noticed us. When the hammer went down, Dad owned the house for $110K. He signed off the sale and paid the deposit just as the previous owners came to the office. Their faces were a picture. I gave them a smeg-eating grin and left. Yeah, know the worth. I mean, what were they expecting? And had they seen any other people before? Did they look at the scheduling? Did they look at any other houses to know the market or anything? There's that whole meme of, don't try to lowball me. I know what I've got. No, you don't. Story 5. Am I the a-hole for taking an Uber to a wedding so I wouldn't be late? My sister got married last weekend. I flew into town and my parents insisted that I stay with them instead of a hotel like I wanted. My parents are constantly late for everything. I think it's a Latin thing. I hate being late. I think it's disrespectful. The wedding was at 2:30. My folks live about a half hour from the church. Noon rolls up, and my folks aren't even getting ready yet. They're adults, and I am over dealing with them. I get ready, I send for an Uber, and I am at the church at 2. I check in with my sister. She asks me if I had any problems getting my parents to church. I told her that I came by myself and said that I was not responsible for getting them there on time. Well, nobody asked me to do that. I didn't even want to stay there. So now everyone starts calling my parents. They're getting ready. They were about 35 minutes late. The service was shortened because there was another wedding later that day. Everyone is still mad at me for not getting my parents there on time. My aunt said that I'm an a-hole for messing up the timing of the wedding. My mom says it's my fault for not reminding them to get ready. Am I the only one who thinks adults should be able to be on time for their own kid's wedding without help? No. This is something she should have been asked. If you wanted them to get there, if you wanted her to be responsible for getting the parents there, should have asked. It doesn't sound like there was any communication at all with anyone. This is the father's responsibility for being there to be part of the wedding ceremony. You just ruined your daughter's day because you couldn't handle your own stuff. Not anyone else's responsibility. You're an adult. You have been for quite a while now.
Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.